Okay, guys, we're going to talk about the problems with Uber and Lyft, and this is a great topic where this mother made $103,000 on her 2022 for 2022, but only took home 19,000. So now, if she'd made this kind of money, which means she probably put a lot of mileage on her car, Uber and Lyft in the beginning was a excellent gig to make a little extra money on. Now it's not profitable for the drivers at all. It's literally not profitable. With the increased cost of maintenance and service on your car, the increased cost of insurance, it's no longer a profitable gig. You, if you're going to do it part time, and I mean part time, 1 day a week, is your best bet. And I'm going to give you some tips that you need to know on how to make it as profitable as possible. Rule number one: do not take these $4, $5, $3, $7, $8, $9. Minimum bid that you should take a ride is $10, nothing less. Let them rides cycle through until you get your $10. Second, do not take any ride that's less than $1 a mile. And how do you calculate that? You take the miles that it takes you to go to pick up the person and the miles from picking them up to their destination. So if it takes 3 miles to pick them up and 7 miles to drop them off, that's 3, 7, that's 10. What your upfront cost need to be is $10 or greater. If it's $9.15, if it's $7, you let it keep cycling through until you get the rate you want. Do not let them run you dry, because this way, if you get $1 per mile, if you put 1,000 miles in your car, you're going to make $1,000. Most of their rides aren't $1. Most of them are 75 cents, 50 cents. Some as low as 25 cents per mile. Do not run your car to the ground to make this little bit of change they're going to give you. So we've already went past that part. That's how you're going to get $1 per mile. Reject all other cars. And I'm telling you, if you have a budget, if you need to make $200 a day, you can still do it and not put all those miles on your car. I'm telling you, it's too expensive out here these days. Now, another problem that Uber and Lyft is having, other than Lyft is now taking 50% and Uber is taking 60% right off the top. And I've seen scenarios where they took as much as 80%, or close to 80, like 66%, 66, 67% of the fare off the top. And you got whatever. They will screw you as much as you allow them to. They would give you $3 or $4 rides, and you would hope that you would take them. But if you don't take them, it's going to cycle through the system, and eventually they're going to have to hike the price up to make it affordable for you to take them. I know I've also heard people, these long haul runs. Do not take long runs unless you're making $100 per hour. If you got a 3-hour drive to go pick up somebody and drop them off, and Uber's only willing to pay you $150, $140, they're charging the customer far more than that, closer to $450. You're going to have to drive 3 miles and 3 hours to drop them off, and then another 3 hours to get back home, because you're not going to get a return trip. And so that's going to blow 6 hours of your day, making $150 when you could do local runs and make that in under 6 hours. Yes, that's how you're going to do it. Do not take those long runs unless they offer you $100 per hour. If it's anything less than that, let it stay in the queue until it gets high enough for you so it's worth your while. Do not take these cheap rides, because the only person that's hurting is you, and you making the predatory companies rich off your back and your desperation. Okay, so with that said, let's go back to this young lady. She used this as a part-time gig. She moved from Florida to Georgia in 2019 for more working opportunities and lower cost of living. But she still struggled to pay her rent and quit Uber and Lyft to find a new job, because what Uber and Lyft is paying you, if you lucky, you'll make between $18 and $20 an hour. But that does not include the expenses. You got to pay for gas. You got to pay for wear and tear in your car. You got to pay for maintenance. You got to look at the depreciation of your vehicle. A full-time Uber or Lyft driver will put anywhere between 60 to 120,000 miles on the vehicle. So you got a brand new vehicle, and at the end of the year, you got 60 to 100,000 miles. That vehicle is not going to be worth anything, and you still got anywhere between 2 to 3 more years to pay on that vehicle, and you're not going to make the money to be able to trade it in, pay it off, because what the Uber and Lyft is going to give you is not going to compensate you well enough. So what's going to happen is that you're going to be caught up in a loan that's upside down, and you're not going to be able to pay it off, and you're pretty much setting yourself up for failure. Because when it comes down to it, they're not going. They don't care. All they care is about the drivers they can get and use and manipulate. Now you can also use the rentals, but I've heard nightmares with Hertz. So do not use Hertz. And I've heard several nightmares with Hertz. Do not use Hertz at all. And you can ask around, because everything I've heard about Hertz has been a nightmare. They rebilling people several times. I've heard people renting it from Hertz and turn around that they claim the car was stolen. It's just nightmare after nightmare. You do your own research, and you'll hear about the nightmare stories that's coming from Hertz. Do not mess with them. Do reputable company. Now, some of the better car rental places aren't going to lease to Uber and Lyft, because they know they tear the cars up. They want to make a profit off these cars, but giving a car to Uber and Lyft to use, it's not a profit. That's utter failure. And Hertz have seen this with the Teslas, letting people use Teslas, and nobody wants them. And when they do, Uber, I think, offered an extra $1 if you went green, but I think they got rid of that. So your best opportunity, if you're going to do ride sharing, make sure you get $1 per mile. Do not take these random crazies. Don't do the long runs unless they're $100 an hour. Don't be desperate. Don't be thirsty. And that what the Uber and Lyft is hoping that you are. They're hoping that you're thirsty enough to take these low bids for these low cars. Do not be thirsty. Let them cars marinate in its own sauce until they realize these guys are not taking these cars. We need to up the rates. And until that happens, they're going to keep running over you and treating you like the trash that they believe you are. They don't care about any of their drivers. They've made that clear they don't. They pay you as little as possible, and they take off as much as possible. They don't offer anything worth taking 60% off the top or 50%. Everything involving in this ride share falls back on the driver, on you. Don't be played. Don't be thirsty so that you're gonna go ahead and destroy your car. And then when your car gone, where's Uber and Lyft go? They're like, hey, they don't care if your car gone. They go to wait for the next sucker that's gonna come up and ride for them. So now that you know this, and you've been educated on the rules of how Uber and Lyft works and how they don't care about their drivers at all. That's why I think it's Minnesota who offered still a low cost, and they told me they threatened to leave. I don't think they're going to leave anyway, because they're too thirsty. They know there's people thirsty enough to keep doing it. The only place I know they left, was Austin. And because Austin requested them to do background checks, and they said no. And when I say background checks, fingerprints. They needed to go get the driver's fingerprint, and Uber and Lyft said no. That's the only place I know Uber and Lyft is not running, in Austin, Texas, because they wouldn't fingerprint the driver, because there's been a lot of incidents where people who claimed that people were using other people's account on Uber and Lyft, including people that had felonies. There's no clear. It's a dangerous world out there. You don't know who's picking you up, because they could be using somebody else's account. You can literally go create an Uber and Lyft account using somebody else's credentials, and they will let you through. Yeah, that's sad, and it's dangerous. The way to do it is get fingerprint and verify your identity that you are who they say. But they don't want to spend the money, but they will take 60% of your income with no problems. All right, peoples, that's enough of me bashing those two which comes. There are other companies up and rising. I think there's one called Empower or something like that. They have more of a subscription base, but there's other ones coming out that promise to give more money to the drivers. Right now, I don't see this being sustainable unless they can find enough gullible people they can run through, and then once you're done, you're done. Because if you ask around, what I've been hearing from people is that it's getting harder to get rides. And that's because there's not enough drivers out there, and people are getting tired of getting fed peanuts when they're not elephants. Until next time, you guys take care of yourself. Come back and see me again. I'm always going to have something interesting to talk about. Later.